I've developed my own approach to career counseling that, it's purpose is the center of it. That will probably be no surprise to you based on just some of my comments and my videos and everything. But what I basically, after reading about a lot of theories and approaches, reading a lot of research, working with clients as a career counselor and as manager of career counseling at UW, I started to notice that there's certain themes. If a client is trying to find like a purposeful life and career direction, that there seem to be certain themes of what that looks like. And then like how I help them in finding that. So once again, I'm not saying this is the way to look at, career development, but it's the way I develop. So I want to kind of show this as a model or as a possible idea of how do we kind of go about making our own approaches and kind of synthesizing theory into an individualized approach. All right. So let me pull this up here. All right. So here it is, the life purpose conceptual model. So the life purpose conceptual model is basically this model that I developed, like I said, that helps clients narrow into purpose. And I use this in career counseling because I really started to find that, at least my belief system and how I made sense of it was that, most clients are seeking purpose, even if that's financial security and money and stability. That's purposeful to them. That's meaningful to them. That's what they're yearning for or what they are needing or lacking in life. So they're wanting to be able to kind of say, I want my basic needs to really be met more thoroughly and have that be clear and not have to worry about that. Life would be more meaningful if I don't have to be drained by kind of struggling with basic living conditions. So, or it could, career could also be about how can I, give back to the world? How can I how can I live my spirituality through my career? So a lot of things can apply there. But what I noticed, these are what I call the foundations. So freedom and responsibility, empathy, openness, and authenticity. This is kind of my job. This is the climate that I hope to develop with the client, that I hope that this is the fertile soil where their purpose can kind of surface in their life. So as I help them kind of recognize, okay, I'm free in the world, but once again, this absolutely, and I'm going to talk about this later, there are, external conditions, there are, cultural barriers, there is, systemic influences that hold us back from being totally free. But this idea is that we are in the end free to choose how to respond to the world, even with the injustices or discrimination, whatever it is, whatever outside external environmental impacts there are on us, we're free to respond, and therefore we're kind of responsible, at least for our choosing how we respond, how we choose to kind of confront the world that is placed upon us or that we're born into. So then also, as I help clients experience a relationship of deep level empathy, to really deeply hear them, not just kind of surface level, oh, okay, I understand, but it's almost like the Rogerian, how Carl Rogers would describe empathy, of entering the private perceptual world of the client and kind of being comfortable with it and making sense of it with the client. That's kind of how Rogers would describe empathy, is, entering into that inner space of the client. And sometimes as the counselor, you can sometimes start to be aware of potential, insights for the client, even before they do. And then you reflect it back and it can be an insightful moment for them. And then openness. This kind of has to do with, trusting the client, being open to them as a person, helping them feel a sense of openness to the world, to their inner experience. Sometimes there might be a lot of pressure from family or from society, here's, who I should be based on gender, or here's the type of roles that I should include or that I should consider due to multiple things. But it's just basically kind of creating a space where you can try, you can think, you can say, you can believe whatever you want, and I'm here to openly help you create an environment for you to experience that openness. And then authenticity, that you can be yourself, you can move towards a congruent way of being in the world, your inner experience can start to, hopefully through our relationship, through the counseling relationship, you can start to be more fully whole and so these are kind of this found, as I described here, the bedrock. This is the bedrock where purpose can start to come to the surface more fully in a really real way. So because for the sake of not dragging this video on too long, I'm going to go through these themes pretty quick. But these are kind of the topics, the thematic discussions that come up, or that I noticed that would come up with clients, is that they often talked about their values. What's most important to them? What are their values conflicts? How are they not living their values? We talk about energy. That could include interests from like Holland's codes and everything, but energy can be a little deeper than that too. What really sustains me? Almost like a soul level or a spiritual level. So I would kind of describe my approach as kind of entering that spiritual realm, like Block and Richmond, the life career approach. But yeah, so what are those deep reservoirs of energy inside of me that maybe I have accessed or maybe I haven't? And how can I think a big part of purpose can be finding those deep energy sources, those deep interests, and being able to kind of live that out more fully. Then beginnings and endings. This kind of has to do with, what are those natural transitions through life? How can we use crossroads or transitions or decision points in life to make decisions that will move us towards living more purposefully? So those can be natural transitions like graduation, marriage, a lot, having a first job. Those are natural, like, okay, here's a first, here's a new beginning, but also I'm ending, as a way of being at the same time. So just kind of making sense of what are transitions like for the individual. But, at a deeper level too, beginnings and endings also, it's important because, how do I describe this? I've noticed that like existential concerns often come up with beginnings and endings, that clients, even in career work, that I've noticed, like when we get to a deeper level of career work with like finding a life career, what do I want to do with my life? The idea of death often surfaces, that I only have so much time. I'm only alive for so long. I don't know exactly how long that'll be. Hopefully it'll be to 70 to 80, 90 years old possibly, but it could be at any point. So knowing that life is finite, how can I choose to live in a way that's meaningful? So that idea of that there is an ultimate mortal ending, and then therefore, how can I choose to live purposefully and live purposefully in a career, since that's often for many people a large part of our waking hours is lived out in that role. So suffering as well. What suffering has the client experienced is often a big part of purpose, and finding meaning through suffering. Sometimes the suffering is an atrocity. Sometimes it's horrifying, the suffering that clients have gone through. And sometimes it really holds the client back from living meaningfully. The trauma that people have experienced can show up and influence in a negative way so many parts of life. So sometimes, the career development process is helping clients heal first. One client that I worked with for a long time, it was working through some really early year experiences that were pretty traumatic and difficult. And they're still kind of impacting, what do I choose to do with my life? How do I feel about my self-esteem and about what I have to offer through a career? So it's like, yeah, career was, what kind of brought the client in, but it's really these deeper issues that we were working on as well, kind of simultaneously. So yes, there's a deeper level element of suffering that can influence or even inform purpose. But also, like, what suffering do we see in the world? What suffering needs to be alleviated around me? Maybe it's the suffering I've experienced and that I've had to heal from, and now I want to help other people heal as well. So suffering can often kind of be a way of like, what is that need or challenge or that difficulty in the world that I want to help with? So then inheritance can be a big theme as well. So I kind of break this down into 4 levels of inheritance. So the first is like biological inheritance, then family of origin inheritance, cultural inheritance, and spiritual inheritance. So yeah, the biological is kind of genetically what gifts were we just kind of given? We're placed in the world, we're thrown into the world, as Heidegger would say. And that's like, we have certain dispositions, maybe challenges, some things that might not seem fair. That could be disability. It could be, all sorts of just life circumstances, just kind of the way we enter the world biologically. We're going to have certain predispositions or challenges. So making sense of those, that can be like, it can also be gifts, maybe that we're naturally gifted or have natural ability in a certain area. So that kind of general theme can be important to explore. Family of origin inheritance. We often inherit early beliefs, traditions, norms, rules for living, that impact, what is meaningful or purposeful in a career. And cultural, we all enter the world and are influenced by culture, whether that's, based on social identity of, gender, ethnicity, sexual orientation, ability status, so many parts of ourselves can influence how we experience the world. So like one client of mine in particular, identified as, Latina, female, and that was a big part of like just receiving so many messages of like, okay, so people from my background, she kind of felt like they don't go into the STEM field. Females don't go into the STEM field. I'm receiving no support to go into the STEM field, but that's what she wanted. So there's this big cultural influence of saying, no, you can't move in that direction. But she's like, but I want to, but I feel it inside. So it kind of, part of our work was just kind of navigating that tension and helping her to decide how she wanted to move forward. Then a spiritual inheritance can also be an important part of some people's, life, career, or purpose-centered career counseling work. So that could be like feeling a sense of a career calling. Maybe their religious beliefs are a big part of, or their faith beliefs are a big part of kind of how they make their decisions about what's purposeful and important in life. And then the last is holism. How can we be whole? How can I feel that I'm giving space to all the important pieces of myself? This kind of has to do with Super's approach of the different life roles that we have. How can I, honor various parts of my life? As for me, it's being a husband, a father, being a child, a sibling, being an employee. So all those, how can I kind of balance all those important areas of life? But then also holism has to do with kind of the wellness perspective. How can I take care of myself? How can I balance inside of myself, take care of my mental health, my emotional health, my occupational health? So there's a lot of this idea of just being whole and complete and balanced. So as you can see, like, this is kind of an integrative approach. I just talked about how Super connected with holism, the idea of, personality, of this biological inheritance, how we enter the world. That's, connected with the MBTI. Energy, I talked about interests and Holland's codes. Tons of approaches for career counseling talk about, values. So yeah, this is an integrative theoretical or, model from which to view the career development process. So I would use this in the intake process for career counseling, starting to kind of go into each of these themes, and then we kind of take it from there and go different directions based on the client's need. But yeah, there's just another example. I'm sure I went on a little too long. I get excited about that, but yeah, I just wanted to show you one idea of kind of how things can integrate. And some of mine was kind of connected in particular to Block and Richmond's approach. Probably the idea of balance. They talk about balance. They talk about energy, career calling as well. So I think there's some influence there, since I've actually read that Soul Work text, and pretty good text that kind of broadened the horizon of what career can include.